So Mortal Kombat is a film that was just released, and I saw it in a theatre. And because it was based on a video game, I naturally expected it to be trash. But I was surprised because it was pretty dope. Now I have to confess something. I have no connection to the Mortal Kombat franchise whatsoever, other than playing DC vs Mortal Kombat a long time ago. So take note that I am speaking as someone who went into this film as someone who's completely new to the Mortal Kombat universe. And in some ways I'm glad I did, because as a result I was able to enjoy the film for what it was without any fanboy expectations. So in the comments, I don't want to see any fanboy trash about how I got something inaccurate or how this movie wasn't accurate enough to the lore or games, because I don't care. Overall, I feel about Mortal Kombat the same way as I feel about Godzilla vs Kong, which I also reviewed, and that the film was exactly what it needed to be, and for the most part did it pretty well. Within the first 10 minutes of the movie, I was floored with the fight sequences. The opening fight scene used a perfect blend of close-ups and wide shots. There was just enough shaky cam incorporated to give the fight a sense of urgency without being too distracting. There also wasn't many quick cuts, and the camera was constantly moving with the character. However, unfortunately, as the film progressed, the action sequences for some reason became less impressive. The film relied more and more heavily on high shutter speed, quick cuts and close-ups. Those are generally all signs of poorly directed action, although there are some exceptions. However, in a film like Mortal Kombat, there is really no reason for action sequences to sink to this level. That being said, the action was far from bad. In fact, it was more than passable. It just fell below the high bar that was set up with the opening fight sequence. However, the film redeemed itself with its final fight. The film's climactic battle was on the same tier as the first fight, which I was immensely pleased about. I just wish there was more consistency and quality throughout the film. Similar to Godzilla vs Kong, the film knew exactly what it was and didn't take itself too seriously. One of the most prominent characters throughout the film was Kano, played by Josh Lawson. He was mostly comic relief through the film and was extremely well cast. Most of his dialogue was funny and quick-witted, and he definitely stole the show whenever he was on screen. My only criticism is that his excessive pop culture references became a little too distracting and Deadpool-esque at times. I wasn't too thrilled with the film's lead character, Cole Young, played by Lewis Tan. Although his performance was passable, he wasn't given a huge amount to work with script-wise. The film unfortunately had the same problem that plagues a lot of fantasy and adventure films. The protagonist, aka the straight man, is unfortunately the least interesting part of the film, due to the fact that they are surrounded by a world that is inhabited by people that are far more well-defined and interesting than they are. There are plenty of examples of a relatable protagonist being done well. Frodo, Harry Potter and Peter Parker are just a couple of exceptions that come to mind. But this film gave the audience very little to grab onto, outside of the bare minimum, like having a family lineage and having a love interest and a kid to care about, and that's it. The film also had some strange pacing issues. The film was very short, 1 hour and 50 minutes exactly, and it had a lot to get through and a lot to introduce, and for the most part it does a pretty good job at developing everyone and everything efficiently in a limited time frame. However, I would have loved for some breathing room so that I could feel as though I was experiencing the world I was being introduced to. Just a little bit more. I genuinely wouldn't have minded if the film was a bit longer personally. The film also made some strange editing choices, in which fight sequences were intercut with other scenes, and to be honest, it felt a little jarring, like it was done in post. I could be wrong, but to me it felt more like a choice that was deliberately made to save time, rather than a stylistic decision. The film's special effects were mostly impressive, although the CGI creatures were a bit cartoonish, but blended into the film's world pretty well. The CGI gore during the fight sequences were just enough to give the film a sense of brutality, while still being just hyper-stylized enough to fit within the film's fantasy universe. My only real complaint with the film's special effects is the iffy green screen, which I felt could have been a lot better for a film of this size. The film did an efficient job at building its world and making me interested in it. This is mostly due to the location's distinct visuals and the costume and makeup. The fact that I had no familiarity with the franchise prior to the film and yet was still able to become interested in the characters and lore is something that genuinely impressed me. If a less than 2-hour film that is based on a multimedia franchise that has existed since '92 can make someone with no connection to the franchise interested in seeing the sequel, then the film, for all its flaws, is clearly doing something right. All in all, I had a good time with Mortal Kombat. It wasn't perfect by any means, and for a film that literally has combat in its title and is based on a fighting game, the combat was somewhat underwhelming, but there was still plenty to appreciate. I would overall recommend this one, and my rating is a solid 6 out of 10. Till next time.